The good and the bad binary certainly obscures the structural nature of racism and makes it so difficult for us to see or understand.
I think it's interesting how we tend to distance ourselves from racism.
As a human, we open our hearts to everyone around us.
We all think that we are not racist because we don't spew hate outright.
We were all raised in a racist society. There is no way around that. Even if your parents raised you right, even if you were raised surrounded by diversity and culture, even if you recognize your privilege.
As a Black person, I find myself caught in between letting people stay ignorant, in which that is racism to me, or going high and educating those who want to learn.
Racism is a systemic, societal, institutional, omnipresent, and epistemologically embedded phenomenon that pervades every vestige of our reality.
Our narrow mindsets automatically set labels on each other based off our color, our hair, our clothes, our walk, and our talk.
Silence is one of the ways in which racism is manifest, for it is an imposed silence.
Although racism is now discrete, it's still present in everyday life.
If we believe racism is not a problem, then we too become the problem.
In this life of speed and self-servingness, we, more often than we care to admit, will push someone down to lift ourselves up.
A white man drives a Cadillac, he is seen as rich. A Black man drives a Cadillac, he is seen as a thug, a gangster, or a thief. I don't understand this theory.
How many acts of violence must we witness before we consider ourselves complicit?
Our implicit bias creates problems, but we fall victim to putting a cover over ourselves and hiding the fact that we all have been racist, all have been prejudiced, and it's time to uncover ourselves and address our faults.
Falling back onto what we grew up with is so easy to do. Racist habits are hard to break.
If we believe racism isn't our problem, then we too become the problem.
When being told that you are a bad person, you will always defend yourself in all ways possible, due to having that fear of rejection.
It's a really dark place. No one really wants to go, but the truth is, it's already there. So why are we so unwilling to go there?
Without discomfort, there is no growth.
Even if we are of different races, we should be fighting against these racial disparities together.
We were taught to treat everyone the same. As human beings, we need to stop lying to ourselves and to others based off this fantasy.
We can cover our mouths and not say a word, or we can speak up, hear, and see the truth.
This system only needs for white people to be really nice and carry on, to smile at people of color, or maybe go to lunch with them on occasion.
We all think we are not racist because we don't spew hate outright.
But when we blind ourselves to the color of skin, we are doing ourselves a disservice.
We must learn to listen to what others have to say and not silence people of color.
We used to believe that if you're a good person, you're not racist.
But to be clear, being nice is generally a better policy than being mean, sure enough. But niceness does not bring racism to the table and will not keep it on the table when so many of us who are white want it off.
Instead of walking forward, we have walked backwards. We're supposed to be in a new world with new thoughts and new opportunities. Instead, we are stuck on the same dreadful, pain-causing act that is racism.
Regression.
We're afraid to admit that we're all racist.
That we don't see color, but we all see color.
But some choose to hide behind a word, or a phrase, or a movement.
I think it all kind of leads back to the the idea that inaction is still a form of action. That by choosing to ignore it when we know it's there, it's only going to get darker, it's only going to get worse.
There are ways to stand up to microaggressions and make the racist actions of a person visible while still remaining polite and diplomatic.
We can then be defined by the actions we take to correct ourselves and how we advocate for change and equitable opportunities. Racism should not be about who you are, but rather what you do and say in that moment.
Inaction is a form of action.
We have a choice to make. And we must choose to shorten the slack, to raise up the scale, elevating those we have dropped into the pits.
The words that you speak and the thoughts that you conceive modify your beliefs.
I have to actively work to check myself and my privilege and work to encourage anti-racism, not just in myself, but in others around me. Otherwise, I am compliant with the systematic racism in our society, which is just as bad as acting colorblind or being outwardly racist.
Racism is so deeply embedded into the structure of our society. How could I possibly escape this corrupt system in just one lifetime?
We need to rid of our segregated societies. We need to speak the differences. We need to create an equal ground for all to speak, do, feel, and see the same.
We fall victim to our own ignorance and our lack of acknowledgement and accountability. And we think that we can reach for that safety blanket, and that will protect us from being seen as a racist or in any way connected to racism.
Even if I grow up around diversity, and even if I grow up recognizing my privileges, I'm still part of our society.
The dominant paradigm of racism as discrete, individual, intentional, and malicious acts makes it unlikely that whites will acknowledge any of our actions as racism.
I want the world to celebrate race, not spew hateful speech and actions. I want the world to walk together hand in hand. Instead, we're walking out on one another.
Our differences, our uniquenesses, our thoughts, and our identities should not be used to bring others down, but to be brought together and honored.
We do not have to appeal to your vision in order to be seen.
There is a choice we make. A choice to be racist or a choice to be anti-racist.
They choose not to hear, not to see, not to speak on anything. They brush off these problems because they have nothing to do with them. What they don't realize is that acting as if they are different will only bring hurt in the end.
Simply not being racist is not enough to change the systematic issues that are present in our current world.
Behind closed doors, we contradict ourselves by formulating discriminatory thoughts.
A racist joke, a derogatory stereotype, condemnation of someone's character. Anything to help us get ahead.
Change must occur, and it starts with us.
White people must use their position to challenge inequality.
Niceness does not break with white solidarity and white silence. In fact, naming racism is often seen as not nice, triggering white fragility.
We don't know each generation has their own form of racism, whether it be hate or stereotypes.
We need to rectify it now before it gets darker, before it gets worse.
I want everybody to feel loved and be loved, not hated. For this to happen, I have to walk out on the thought of not being racist, because me not doing anything and just walking away is the same as being racist. I need to move on from this and have the courage to call people out. I need to speak up.
The discrimination, segregation, prejudice, inequality, animosity. When will it stop?
We must celebrate racial differences.
I need to be part of the change, not part of the problem.
If we stand for nothing, we fall for everything.
It's time for us to wake up and face
The good and the bad binary. certainly obscures
We were
the
taught
structural nature of racism.
everyone
It makes it
Sometimes
so
I think of a
difficult
locked
for us
car
to
door.
see
by being kind.
or understand.
A white man drives a Cadillac, he is seen as rich. A black man drives a Cadillac, he is seen as a thug, a gangster, or a thief. I don't understand this theory.
Is it how and what we were taught?
Behind closed
Or
doors.
religious
Instead of walking forward, we have walked backwards. We're supposed to be in a new world with new thoughts and new opportunities. Instead, we are stuck on the same dreadful, pain-causing act that is racism.
We're afraid to admit that
I want the world to celebrate race, not spew hate through speech and actions. I want the world to walk together, hand in hand. Instead, we're walking out on one another. I want everybody to feel loved and be loved, not hated. For this to happen, I have to walk out on the thought of not being racist, because me not doing anything and just walking away is the same as being racist. I need to move on from this. I have the courage to call people out.
we need to stop lying to ourselves.
I need to be part of the change, not part of the problem. I don't want to be a locked door.
It's time for us to wake up and face
I find myself caught in between.
So tell me this.
Letting people stay ignorant.
If we stand for
in which
nothing,
that is racism to
we
me.
fall for everything.
Or going high and educating those who want to learn.
Equality, equality, we need. Well, I watch the stocks and bonds build as they chop down, chop deal, and still rape and kill on land at will. Oh, now His truth shall reveal. My people fight for air to breathe, so quick to deceive and plead on their knees for the money. When all we want is to succeed, so we strive to create eternal life. I don't